basic tools and how we can use Python for different projects. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. So one website that is very useful for when we need to search different commands or when we don't remember the syntax for some function is this website W3 Schools. Here we can see the examples, for example, who we can print something in the screen for the user. And also there are some videos, tutorials we can help to understand and do the basic of the first programs. Then we have, for example, who you install Python, who see the different versions. Something important is understand the kind of data that we can use in Python. So when we are talking about the different language of programming, we will use different kind of data. For example, integer, Boolean, string. So what is this mean? For example, when we are talking about integer, we are using only numbers. If we are using strings, this means that we can write a text or write a sentence, for example, the name of the user or, for example, the address or whatever information that we need, write or use words and different symbols that is not numbers. This is important because when we are programming and we need to do some mathematical operations, it's important to understand that the data is in the right format. Because if we are trying to add in, for example, 2 characters, or if let's imagine that we are requesting to the user enter her age in numbers. But when we configure this as a string. So the user, instead of insert 34, the user insert 03, when we try to process this information, we will get an error. So this is the importance to understand the kind of data and make sure when the user are entering some information, the format is correct. So when we go to libraries or when we go to in this site in Python, we can see here Python data types, and we can see string, int, float, complex. So I recommend you start understanding what is the difference between the kind of data and when we will use one or another. For example, we have one example here, x equal 5, and when we print the type, let's see what's happened. And also we can copy these examples, and when we go to Python, I'm using Python installed in my computer. I have installed Python, and I'm using directly in my computer. So let's share again. Some examples. When we open Python, when we install Python, we go to here. I'm using the idle Python. When we click here, we will open these windows. And here we can create a new file, go into file, new file, Or we can use, for example, that if we created before one project, we can go to recent files, or we can open and search the file that we already created. In this case, I'm using, let's create a new file. And let's try what's happening when we write x equal 5 and we try to print the information. When we press F5, in this case, it's a new file. So first I need to save. So I will save as a default, as a test. But you can create a new folder where you storage your project. And in this case, you can see here the class is int. This means that 5 is a number. But if now I write, for example, x equal row, and when we run again this program, so we will see one error here because I didn't define correctly. Yes, if we are using string, we need to use quotes. Yeah. Yeah. And in this case, you can see that is a string. This is one important point. When we use Python, the different colors that appear in the screen have different significance. When we can see the green color, this is because we are using a string. And there are some words that you can see here that is in violet: print, type. These are reserved words that Python interpret as a functions or word reserved that have a meaning for the program when this is running. Yes. So it's important, for example, if I try to write print, and I see this is green, this is black, sorry, I can realize that there's something wrong when I type, because this word is reserved and should be in color, in this case in violet. So this is basic steps and the first things that we need to understand when we are initiating the programming in Python or in another languages. Okay, the next step is try to do basics program. As I mentioned, when we use quotes, we can write comments. This is, for me, is one very important tools that you must use in your programs when you are programming. Write the comments and write good comments. So, for example, when in Python, if we use 3 single or 3 double quotes in the start and in the end, we can write here in the middle wherever you want, and you can describe, for example, this is the first program in Python. Yes. Your days, and you can write more than one line, and all of this text will be in green. And when the software run, this part will be ignored and don't will be processed. So you can write what you want, and this term will be an error. For example, if I run this, yeah, we don't see nothing here, yeah, because it's just a comment. Now, another kind of useful comments is when, for example, we need comment one specific line, we can use hashtag, and in this case, you will see that is in red. So definition of a variable. Yeah. It's important when we are programming use the different comments to help us understand what we are doing, or when we work in team, so the other person can understand what is this section of the code, or why is the reason to are using some functions. So it's very important. And also when we are reviewing the program, for example, we created one project today and tomorrow we create another, and after a few days when we return to our first project, maybe we will not remember what is this. So it's important to use comments. Yes. Okay. One question that was mentioned in the previous session that we was running was who we can create, or who we understand a sentence in a problem, and then we translate this in a program in Python or another language. This is the challenge for every programmer: understand a sentence and then develop a good program. So this will make the difference between a programmer and a good programmer. When you are using logic think, and you are creating the you're consider all of the options. So to become a good programmer, this is the first step: understand the sentence, understand the problem that is mentioned or is requested to solve, and imagine all of the situations. For example, I give one question. So count how many students passed the exam. So when I explain this sentence, for our mind is easy. Is simple. Oh, if the students get more than 50, they pass the exam. Otherwise, they fail. But when we need to write in a programming language, sometimes this is not too easy. And this is what will make the difference between a programmer and a good programmer. So they code this sentence and code. Yeah, create a good code. If I'm trying to identify how many students pass the exam, yes, we need to imagine, of course. So I need to have the scores of the students. This is the first step. I need to store, or the user need provide me the score of the students. So, and for this first part, there are different options. I can get the list of scores, or the user can enter one by one, or the user can enter the list of the scores, and then we will need to do the process of this information and search how many students get more than 50. And when we are searching how many students get more than 50, we can do different comparisons. And in this point, we can use different Python functions, we can use if, we can use while, for, or the combination of this instruction. So this is the different loops that we have in Python. So first we need to understand what is these loops and when I can use one or another, what is the advantages and disadvantages of each of these loops. So if we go to the website and we look here in elf and is elf. So when we use if else, we will use if when we need to make a question in programming, when we need to compare two things. For example, if B is major than A, I will do one action. Yes, for example, in this case, print B is greater than A. In the case that we are talking about the how many students are passed, I will ask, this course is greater than 50, greater or equal to 50? If yes, I need to count or I need to increment my counter in one. It's because I found one student that get more than 50. But then I don't will have just one student. Yes, I will have more students. And for this, we can use loops like for. If I know exactly how many students I have, or in this case, or if I can know the quantity of scores that the people are enter, I can use the for example. Yes. For X in fruits, here we have one vector with different fruits. And here I can run a cycle for where I will search in the different elements of the vector or array. In Python, we have this kind of data that we call arrays or vectors, where is a combination of the elements of the same type. In this case, all of the elements are string because are words, apple, banana, cherries. But also we can have one array of numbers with the scores, and the elements of the vector are always separated by comma. So this is important. And this first element, apple, for the vector will be the element number 0. This is a particularity. When we are talking about programming, always the first element will be the 0 elements of the array. Banana will be the first and cherry will be the second element of the array. But in total, we have 3 elements. Yes, but we start count in 0, 1, and 2. And we can search and we can store in one memory. This is the advantages of use vectors because we are using one memory, yes, or one vector that we call fruits, and in this position, in this variable, we will search all of the information. Otherwise, we will need to use, for example, fruits 1, apple, fruits 2, banana, fruit 3, cherries, and this doesn't make sense when we need to store a lot of information. So this is why we will use one array. And then we will search into this array the different values, and we can compare and we can do math operations, print something or whatever what we want. The other option of loops that we have is while loops. Yes. The difference between the while loops and the for loops is in the while cycle, the quantity of iteration is established, is fixed. So for example, the while will start in 1 to 5. In 5, the for we will finish. In comparison, the while loops, this quantity of iteration is not established, so we can run the while infinity of times until one condition happens. So we need to create one condition to break this loop. When this condition established, the while will break and the program will continue with the other parts. But while this condition is true, the cycle will repeat itself infinite times. Yeah. And we need to be careful when we are programming while to create a break and make sure that the condition to break the while is okay. Otherwise, it will be an infinite loop and our program will be never stop, and this can create a problem in the memory and in the cycle of the program. Yes. Here we have one example. We start a equal 1, and here we will run this cycle while a is less than 6. And here we have one condition, and in this condition, if a is equal to 3, we will break the while. We can do, this is one kind of breaking the while. We can just write the word break and we will break the while. Or here we are incrementing the counter a in +1. So the first time that we will run here, it will be initially is 1. 1 is less than 6, yes. Then we increment 1, it will be 2. Here, 2 is less than 6, yes. They will increment 1 and it will be 3. 3 is less than 6, yes. But here when we did this comparison, 3 equal to 3, yes. So this will be break the while, and the program will continue running with the other parts if we have. So these are the different functions and loops that we can implement in Python. Of course, there are more complex sentences, more complex functions that can help in different situations. But the more basics are if, while, and for, and this is very useful for most kind of programs. So now let's go to see one example. I sent in the email the 3 levels of programming, and this is related with when I'm talking about the understanding of the sentence and creating the program, who we can do this. Yes, every programmer will do one program different to the other program. It's very difficult that 2 people write the same code because everyone have a different knowledge, different perspective, and know different functions. And for for the same situation, we can use more simple or more complex tools and functions and create different programs. And this is the beauty of programming. It depends of the style or who we can program. It's not just one solution. We can find many solutions for the same problem. And one program will be more efficient than other, but of course this is another question. Yes, when we are talking about the efficient of the program, when we consider the quantity of memory that we are using, who is fast, or the reducing the quantity of variables that we are using. But now we will focus just in do something simple. When we are talking about the example of the scores, if the students are passed or no, let's imagine that we have one vector called scores. And in this vector, we will charge, in this case, 7 elements that in this case are numbers because we are not using quotes. Yes, you can see it's just numbers. 55, 70, 80, 45, 90, 66, and 30. Then we will create one variable that we will use to compare. We can create the variable, or when we are using in the if, we can just compare with the number. But it's a good practice because, for example, today pass mark is equal or greater than 50. But imagine that tomorrow the system change and for pass the grade will be 60. So if we are using just the number in the program, then we will need record all of the program and change in every part that we are using this number. But when we use here as a variable, I can use this variable in every part of the program, and then just we can change here, for example, 40, and I need to change just in one part, and the program will be good. So it's easy for change the conditions. Yes. And we will define passed count equals 0, because when we will start doing the comparison, the number of students should be 0. And here I will use a for score in scores. Yes. Note that score is different than scores with S in the final. Yes, scores with S in the final. I am talking about this vector that have the list of the scores of the students. And this is one convention that is used in programming when we are talking about the variables of the vectors. We will use plural, and when we are talking about for example, just one variable, we will use in singular. Yes. So we will do a for in score in scores. When we are writing in this format, the for will check and validate how many elements there are in this array, and they will start in 0, less than, in this case, 7. if I know how many elements there are in the list, I just can write here score in, for example, 7. So I will fix the quantity of iterations writing here, for example, 7. But I'm not sure how many elements I have in this vector, so we can use in this way. And then we have one if to do the comparison. If the score is greater or equal to pass mark, that we define here, pass mark equal 50, then we will do pass counter equal pass counter plus 1. What is this? This we are incrementing in 1 unit every time that we found one student that passed the exam. And when we are programming, it's important to identify these symbols, major or equal. If I write here just major than 50, for example, if the student get 50, in this if, this condition will be false. So the student gets 50, but when I'm doing this comparison, if score is major than pass mark, don't 50 don't will be considered. So if the score here, the score is 50, 50 is not major than 50. So this will be false, and I don't will count this student. And this will be one logic error because I need to include equal. Yes, if the student get equal to 50, also the students are passed in the exam. So this is important to consider when we are programming. We need to think equal, major, major or equal. So otherwise we will get a logical a logic error. When we are programming, we can do different kind of mistake, different kind of errors. And the most difficult to solve is when we have logical errors. Yes, because we don't think in all of the possibilities, or we don't think, for example, here we consider just major are not equal, and then will be an logical error. And when we run the program, it will be like correct, but the result don't will be correct. And this kind of error are the most difficult to solve. Yes, because if we try to run and there are some typing error or sentence error, we will get the result in the here in the comment in the we will see here that there are some error. But when we do logical errors, we don't will have the answer of the system, and we need to think and review our code and find what's the error. Yeah. So let's run this code. Here we have 7 students. Yeah. In this case, sorry, we have 6 students. 1, 2, 3, 6. Yes, seven students, 7 scores, and we have here 45 and 30. So just 2 students that don't pass the exam. So in this case, when I print here the number that passes, the student that passed, I will print this counter. So in this case should be 5. Yes, when I run the code, the number of students that passed should be equal to 5. Yes. let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 students get more than 50. And we can see here number of students who passed equal to 5. So this is the first step, the first level. So we can count how many students passed the exam. For this, we just need to know what is the mark to pass and compare and count. Now, the second level that I propose to create, also we can use what I'm doing here. I am just comment this part of the code, so I can have different examples in the same file, and I can comment one part, comment the other part, and try and run the code, different codes in the same page. And then we can compare to not create, for example, 3 different files. I'm using just one file, and I'm commenting the parts that I'm not testing at the moment. In the example that I provide, in the second level, the question is identify how many students pass, how many students fail, how many students get credit, how many students get high distinction, on distinction. That is the different levels of qualification that we have here, for example, in Australia. So when we are thinking, we need to understand the Australian system or the American system, for example, this with letters A, B, C, or in Argentina, for example, we use the number from 1 to 10. 10 is the maximum score. So this is another important situation that we need to understand. Okay, I'm creating this program for students in Australia. I need to understand who the mark system in Australia works, because could be different in America, in Argentina, in I don't know who is in India or in another countries, who is the system to mark the students. So in Australia we have 50 to pass, rather than 50 credit, rather than 85 is the extinction, and rather than this is the high distinction. I'm not sure. Yes. So these are the consideration when we listen a sentence or classify the students in according the different levels. So we need search, what is the Australian system, what is the numbers, yes, and also this is a challenge, a important job that a programmer needs to do first. So search this information and understand who the system works, to then we do a program appropriate. Okay, in this case, we will use again the scores. We use the scores, and we will do more questions in this case. Yes, we will do more comparison. If score is less than 50, of course the student fail. But then if the scores is greater than 50 but less than 55, the student just pass. Otherwise, if the score is greater than 50 but less than 75, is credit. Or if the score is greater than 50 but is less than 85, we will get distinction. Otherwise, it will be high distinction, just when it's greater than 85. And this question, who will write this question, who will do this comparison, there are different ways to do. It's not just one. For example, instead of and write this as if, I can write just if, and we can write if score is greater than 50 and less than 85. So there are different ways to do this same program. As I mentioned, it's not just one way to do. It will depend in the efficiency of the program and the good practice of programming. So let's run this program. And in this case, we will get more information to the user. We can see here, one student passed, credit 2 students, distinction 1 student, high distinction 1 student, and fail 2 students. Yes, we see the marks here. Yeah, we have 55 that is passed, 70 is credit, 80 is distinction, 45 fail, 90 is high distinction, 66 is pass, and 30 is fail. And for example, now I can add one more, 99, for example. This was very good student. Yeah. And now we can see that high distinction, there are 2 students. Previous was just 1 student, now we have 2 students. This is the beauty also of use vector. As you see, I add here more elements, and when I run the program, this continues running. I don't need adapt or adjust anything else because I'm using the vector. And here, when I'm running the cycle for, I'm running scores, and I'm getting the information of how many elements there are in this vector. And now I can see the different classification of the scores of the students. So it was the second level. But we can have one level more, a little more complex. And in this case, the question was the average of how many students pass, how many students fail, how many, the average of these students. So for this, we need to do one more step, that when we get the information of how many students pass, fail, whatever, and then we need to do the calculation of the average. In this case, we will need have the count of how many elements or how many students I have in total. In the first case, we have 7 students, and then we need to divide for the score list. So for here we have the lens score, 7 students, and we need to understand how many students pass. For example, if 3 students pass, 3 divided by 7, and I'm going to get the average of the students that fail, pass, and everything. Yeah. Here I'm using the function called len. Yes. Len is one specific function of Python that serves to return the quantity of elements that there are in this case, in this vector. Yes. And it will be returned a number. If we see here for score in scores, when I'm doing this, I am searching here how many elements there are in this vector. But this term for the 4, but is don't will return one number that I can use for other math function. This is why here I'm using the function len. So len will inform me the number exact of the students, or the quantity, the element that there are in this vector. So in this third level, what I did is I take the second level, that was this example, and then I added the calculation of the average. Yes. And for do the average, we need count, or we need to understand the length of the score, so how many elements have, and make the division, the scores, and the average, the total. So. And when I run, I get an error here. Yes. Okay. So the average, we can see here, file is 37%, pass 55%, credit 68%, high distinction 80%, and distinction, high distinction 90. Let's try something. Very. So, as I see here, there are one error because it's a logical error. It's not a programming error. If we can see here, average from high distinction is 90%. And we have just one student that get 90%. So this is wrong. It's not correct, the average. So we need to fix what happened and where is the error. this is the task for you. Understand what happened here and do this average correct. Okay, so I will finish this session and I hope that it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, any consult, you can send me an email. And thanks for watching this video. See you soon.